In the room, and good morning for those that are joining us online. It is my pleasure that you are here today for the VPRI Town Hall event, a conversation with Dr. Mario Pinto 1 year later. Pardon me? Mario is just telling me that they're still lining up outside, so I will take a breather and wait for a second. At least I got the room quiet, so that's good. Okay, one more time because it's Monday morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here in the room, and thank you for joining us online. We are here today for the VPRI Town Hall, a conversation with Dr. Mario Pinto 1 year later. My name is Annemieke Vernorst. I'm the Associate Vice President Research, and I'm the MC for this morning. I would like to begin to acknowledge that the University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dene, and Dakota peoples, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. It has become common to provide some personalized reflections when giving the territory land acknowledgement. So I would like to do that here today as well. My roots are Dutch, and if you wonder what that means, Google says that Dutch people are private people that do not put their emotions on display. So, so despite that explanation, here's my personalized statement. I moved to Canada on my own at the age of 24. I did not know anything about Canada or about those that lived there. I remember the first time that I observed racism against an Indigenous man, and that was shortly after I had arrived in Toronto. In the decades that have followed, I started to learn more and more about the rich cultures that were present on Turtle Island before colonialization, and the harm that colonialism has caused on generations of Indigenous peoples. In the past decade, I've been working in partnership with First Nations, and these experiences will remain the highlight of my research career. I would like to thank elders, knowledge keepers, and others with lived experiences for your guidance and leadership in advocating for better ways. Before we start the formal presentation by Dr. Pinto, I would like to let you know that there are refreshments and some nibbles in the back, and I would also like to point to the washrooms, which are to the right. Feel free to help yourself during the presentation to coffee or refreshments, and I hope that you enjoy the presentation. There will be a dedicated answer and question round after the presentation, so we're asking you to hold off your questions until then. And both online and people in the room can participate in the question round. We are truly excited that many of you are joining us here today, including online, to hear from our Vice President, Research and International, Dr. Mario Pinto. This is Mario's first year anniversary with the University of Manitoba, and he will be sharing with you some of the work that he is advancing to take research and innovation to the next level. But before we hear from Mario, we are also joined by a special guest, Dr. Michael Benroch, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Manitoba. So I would like to call upon Michael to say a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Anamika. I don't know if I've been called a special guest at the university, but okay, thanks. And I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. I want you to know that just over a year ago, we were interviewing for the position of Vice President Research International. When we were interviewing, we were in the midst of still COVID and interviewing virtually. And so I think we were interviewing Mario from Australia, and I don't know, it was like 4 a.m. there when we were interviewing him. He wasn't in his pajamas. He was wearing at least the top of him was wearing a suit. I can't say if his pajama pants were on underneath. But, we were doing this in a virtual format. The committee, when we hired him, was unanimous. In fact, I will tell you all trade secrets. After the first interview, the committee said, do we really need a second interview? Because what he had laid out for us was a vision to put University of Manitoba on the map in terms of the research landscape in Canada. And for him, it didn't just mean increasing the amount of funding, though that's often how we measure this. For him, it was increasing the impact of our research across Canada and to thinking really collaboratively about how we do research across the university. And I think that since he's come in, he's talked about this. He's tried to put in place the pieces to be able to do that. And to think about research that is more cutting edge here at the university and to build on a really strong foundation that we have at the University of Manitoba. And I think we've begun to see the fruits of that in terms of people coming together across the university to work on some of these research projects. Earlier this month, I spoke at the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, and our minister, and Minister Moses, who's Minister of Economic Development and some other things in that title, but probably Research Manitoba, were there. And I spoke about the need of our provincial government to increase research funding to match what's happening in other provinces. And I spoke about the incredible work of our faculty and highlighted, and not only our faculty, of our students, and highlighted some of the research that has come out of the University of Manitoba and its impact, not just here in the city, but globally. And, I think that what Mario has set out to do, and I'm looking forward, I'm not sure I can stay for the whole thing today, but looking forward to your update, is really put us in position to take the next steps. And we know some of that because we're already seeing international partners come to us, talk about their interest from France and from Germany. And recently he signed an agreement with a university in Morocco, and building upon that to collaborate on our strengths and to continue to grow what we do here at the university. And he's been busy working with all of you, and we're working with our community to develop a new strategic research plan, which I've had an opportunity to see. And it certainly lays out a very ambitious path for the University of Manitoba. And so, Mario, to you and your team, I know you've put together a really strong team, though some of it is still coming together. I think it's put us in position to be able to accomplish some of the things that you're looking forward to. So I'm looking forward to today's engaging dialogue. Mario, thank you for your work over the past year, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It really has been a pleasure in the past year. Let me begin by paying my respects to the elders, past and present, and extending that respect to all Indigenous peoples. Let me start off with some thank yous. First of all, thank you to Michael for bringing me here and for providing me with the opportunity. It really has opened my eyes, and it's everything I thought it would be. So thank you, Michael. To my predecessor and very good friend over decades, Dr. Divya Jayas, who has laid a solid and strong foundation upon which we can build. So thank you, Divya. To the VPRIO team, you rock, you absolutely rock. It's a well-oiled machine, and we've been delivering for you on your behalf and supporting you the best we can. So thanks very much to the team. And I appear here on their behalf, on behalf of my associates, vice presidents, Annemieke Fahrenhorst and Hans-Joachim Wieden. I'm very grateful to the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation for appointing me as a member of the governing circle. I've learned a lot, I've cried a lot, especially at this recent event on Parliament Hill for the National Truth and Reconciliation Day, where I spoke to survivors and listened to their stories. It's very humbling to be one of the privileged when you hear such stories. But thank you to them for accepting me. I will do my best to make a contribution to reconciliation. So with those thanks, let me move on to the main content. What does the VPRIO do? Okay. Well, we are here to support. All our budget goes to the faculties, right, in different forms of support. And our goal is very simple: to increase the impact of faculty and students locally, globally, nationally. Right? And we provide our support in the form of people support, infrastructure or platform support, and devising some streamlined processes, still in progress, to make your life easier. Just some facts. In terms of sponsored research income, the last year we have 21, 22, we're down to about 210 million. But don't let the dip alarm you too much. It's because the COVID funds, the special COVID funds that were provided to all universities, we no longer enjoyed. So we're at about 210 million. You'll see the breakdown, about 48% from federal funding, 44% from other, and only 8% from the provincial government, from Research Manitoba. So as Michael said, we certainly hope that we will enjoy a greater proportion from the province. Since I've been here, I've noticed a lot of self-deprecation, and we've got to kick that. Right? We've really got to kick it. There's a lot to be proud of. These are the stats on just total research income, if we're into dollars, which I'm not. But you'll see that we're number 12 in the U15. Okay? That's not the important stat. Look below. It's the measure of performance that I value. And I use the Center for World University Rankings, which is an unbiased ranking and is meaningful. It doesn't have this reputational component in it. And we're number 11 in Canada, we're number 282 in the world. So we're doing well, right? And faculty and students have something to be proud of. When I started here a year ago at the town hall, several of you brought forward issues with the research ethics portfolio. So what have we done? Well, the first thing was to get our infrastructure of support in order, and that involved the infamous research administration system, fondly referred to as RAS. Right? And that took us some time, but we have it in hand now. It's stable. It's a software package, remember, so there will always be bugs, and we will have to deal with those bugs as they arise. But it is stable, and we are now going about optimizing that in terms of the input and revising the RAS input so that it's more user-friendly for all of you. Okay? People support. We heard that our practices were quite cumbersome and were not really appropriate for certain types of applications. Right? So they weren't really geared to whether the project was minimal risk or non-minimal risk. Right? So a proportional response is what we aim for, and in order to do that, we have revamped the REB structure. We now have 5 chairs for the 2 committees at Fort Garry in the different subject areas. So we will now be able to deal with surveys of kindergarten students and asking them what they had for breakfast, and deal with more serious issues in a separate committee. This will also decrease the workload, obviously, for the different subcommittees. So this is all good news. I thank the deans for providing teaching release, partial teaching release, for these chairs. It was critical that we got our house in order with respect to division of labor between the senior administration and the ethics portfolio. And so with that in mind, we appointed a director of research ethics, Karen Schwartz, who's doing an incredible job in revising the whole portfolio. We realized also, and you told us this a year ago, that filling out those protocols was part of the issue. And so we will have research officers working in the faculties, with faculty, to help you in preparation of these competitive applications, research ethics applications, so that we don't have to spend that much time in coming back to you asking for extra details. So all to say that we're trying to streamline procedures. Karen has also begun the process of revising the policy and procedures. That, as you can imagine, will take some time and consultation, but it's important to get started. We have some way to go with the biomedical and health applications, mostly on the Bannatyne campus, but some here as well. And this, we agreed, would be taken on by Research Manitoba and the Rhythm Initiative, and that is still underway. We had a small hiccup. We have decided to change vendor for the research administration package, and that RFP is currently out. And so we will start again with a new software package. But in the meantime, we are getting our processes in order. So stay tuned for that, but we will pursue a harmonized research ethics application in the health and biomedical areas. Other developments, research security. This has taken on a life of its own, as many of you know, and what we are trying to do is shield you as much as possible so that we take on the burden and we do the work that's necessary to get clearance. We still want to maintain our international collaborations, but we will do the due diligence for you to clear some of our exceptional partners. Okay. With that in mind, we are currently advertising for a director of research security because we will have to put in place a solid personnel infrastructure to deal with some of the issues that you're going to hear of coming down the pike from the federal government. Okay. But we will deal with it. And I don't want faculty and students to absorb any of this burden. Okay. On the EDI front, equity, diversity, inclusion, once again, we will be appointing officers to work with faculty and students in their home departments to help them craft more competitive applications, right, as they go out the door. We are currently also advertising for a director of research EDI, and that is absolutely critical because this portfolio is only going to increase in prominence. Okay? I should point out that Annemieke Fehrenhorst is on a special committee of the Council of Canadian Academies to develop the next guidelines for EDI for the country. Okay. On physical infrastructure, it was pretty clear to me when I started that we had quite a bit of work to do in high-performance computing. And so I teamed up with Mario Labar of IST, who's been great at deriving a concerted plan where we combine forces and concentrated on building up a high-performance computing center, and then centralizing all the HPC needs in one secure center. Gregory has been our manager. He's doing a fantastic job, but I would like to thank the senior administration who provided $1 million from the Strategic Support Fund this year that went towards modernization and expansion of this facility. Mario Labar put in $400,000 and the VPRIO put in $300,000. So this upgrade is costing us $1.7 million, but it's for you. So high-performance computing is a very serious business, right? But it's now secure, and we'll be able to handle the needs across the campuses and across all faculties. So very good news. Michael mentioned this, and so did I. Research Manitoba's budget is stretched. I am on the board of Research Manitoba, the board of directors, and I know the budgets because I'm also on the finance subcommittee. It's pretty tight. And so matching funds for some of our major initiatives is a high priority, but it involves some creative financing. So we were successful in increasing the percentage contribution to the JELF Awards this year from 20% to 40%. And we're very grateful for that. There are still budget pressures, and the matching for the Innovation Fund is not yet at 40%, we're at 30%. But work in progress. We've been working with Shared Health to try to curb some of the inordinate delays in the clinical trial space. We've done a forensic analysis about the pinch points, and we know that we have to do better from the University of Manitoba side, but also from the Shared Health side. And so we have a plan in place, together with Shared Health, to fix some of these issues. Okay. There are two major initiatives underway, and I'm very excited. I'll talk about the Undergraduate Research Showcase. The first, this is the brainchild of Hans Joachim, the AVP, who said to me, listen, poster sessions are passé. What are you doing, right? There are different types of student researchers. This is an undergraduate affair. And there are creative artists, there are people who want to express themselves either in dance or sculpture or art or in oral presentations. So let's expand this and have different forms of presentation. This is a bold experiment which will run tomorrow. Right? We have 120 students registered. This is a record number. So I'm looking forward to some dance numbers, something that I identify with, and perhaps some sculpture and some art, also things I identify with. So thank you. We call him HJ. I just can't call him HJ. Thank you, Hans-Joachim, for this brilliant idea. A second initiative coming from Annemieke Fahrenhorst, the Knowledge Exchange. She's taken Café Scientifique and asked the question, well, is that a title that really captures what we're doing? And it doesn't. And so we've expanded this to the Knowledge Exchange. That will broaden to include topics of interest to the general public. So this will become a public square. This will run in degrees. So I don't mean in degrees, but in the pub degrees, so that people can socialize and get to know faculty, students, and the university, and where we can have an impact. So some of the topics are awesome. What is sea ice, right? Insects, good or bad? Friends or foes? Friends and foes, right? Diabetes in children. Many of you are dealing with this issue. What's that all about? What's AI all about? What's the next gen AI going to be, right? What about heart health? What about mental health? Right? These are all top of mind issues that we, as academics, should be educating the public in. And so I'm looking forward to that series that will begin later on in November, and thank you, Annemieke. When I came here a year ago, I told you that we have a superb foundation. Dick very saw to that, right? He did a fantastic job at making sure that we had a solid, strong foundation of discovery research. But I went further and I said, listen, if we want to make a real impact in the world, we got to bring these disciplinary strengths together in imaginative combinations, right? To do something special, to address global issues with different viewpoints and to set University of Manitoba apart. And that's what Michael was referring to in my interview when I was down under and half asleep. But I really believe this is the way to make progress. Right? I also told you that it was all about dialogue. Right? And this was not going to happen by itself. That dialogue was going to be critical. And so with that in mind, we have set about establishing a major projects portfolio and bringing people together in different formats. The first series we ran was the CRC series, the Canada Research Share series. People came together and could listen to what some of our research leaders were doing, and then to perhaps set up different collaborations based on what they heard. We ran an innovation series to tell you what you could do if you had ideas that merited knowledge mobilization and translation and commercialization. We had several topic-based colloquia. I threw it open, for example, climate action, to brainstorm to see if it could come to ground on combining expertise. We ran one on green ammonia, where the engineers finally met some of the natural scientists and started brainstorming. And we will soon be reaching out to our Moroccan colleagues to develop that theme further. Okay? We have also started the Water Institute. We've had one meeting, over 100 participants at that meeting. We'll have a second at the end of November. And our intent here is to partner with the newly formed Canada Water Agency, which will be located in Winnipeg. Terry Duguid, our MP, will be helping with that initiative. This year, we will run the Early Career Researcher and Mid-Career Researcher series. so that we give our young faculty a chance to tell us what they're doing in these 5-minute vignettes and then exchange information and hopefully set up more collaborative ventures. I've been very serious about setting up central grants facilitation. And this really is at the core of the Major Projects Office. The high point of my day is dealing with these grants facilitators, parallel thinkers, who we've handpicked from various parts of the country. So let me tell you about them. Ruth Nechtel, PhD in Humanities and English, comes to us from the University of Waterloo as the Chief Research Grants Facilitator. She's now our Senior Grants Facilitator. Okay. Stephanie Frakes, Masters in Collaborative Piano, PhD in Historical Musicology, has lived in 5 countries and brings a very different experience and expertise to the table. So, Sheila McCrae, PhD in Applied Health Sciences, Research Director at Pan Am Clinic, supervising research in orthopedic surgery, concussion, rehabilitation, and sports engineering. Okay? Sports medicine engineering, pardon me. Tremendous people, because we're approaching these major projects with very different mindsets now and very different insights, and that's what it will take. Right? Very recently, we were very fortunate to recruit from Victoria the director for the Major Projects Office. That's Lisette Mascarenhas, and she will join us. She has a PhD in microbiology, also an MD. She has worked at several agencies, right, including Genome Prairie, Genome BC, and the University of Victoria. And she's also worked at one of the Western Innovation Centers. So this is going to be a powerhouse as we work with you to develop institutional applications. Okay? And we're already in full flight. In order to gauge the response of this community, we applied for funding in the last budget for an internal program, interdisciplinary program, called the IGNITE program, to gauge the appetite of researchers to work in interdisciplinary fields and in interdisciplinary manner. I'm very pleased to report that we received 16 applications, and those are currently being adjudicated. Those were just the NOIs, but some very clever combinations, which is what I was hoping to see. So thank you for that response. In terms of external interdisciplinary opportunities, these are for the institutional applications, everything from CRC, CFI, onward to the special granting opportunities. Those are, again, in full development. Let me tell you about some of them that we've already participated in. In the CBRF BRIF competition, we submitted 3 very competitive applications to the Prairie Hub that were cleared and then submitted subsequently to the national competition. The total worth of those 3 is $98 million. Okay? The next is a New Frontiers of Research Fund international initiative based on climate action. And let me just tell you a little bit about this. One of the best events in coming to Manitoba was meeting this exceptional individual. I'm going to embarrass him, Bruce Hardy, who's sitting here at my dining room table, a Métis entrepreneur. Bruce and I are kindred spirits, and we've had a lot of fun dreaming about the possible. We have to get the order right sometimes, but we'll get there. But we're dreaming about what we could do. You'll recognize Tracy in the picture, and that's my lovely wife, Linda. But Bruce came to us with this idea of developing indigenous agriculture and aquaculture. and a circular economy for and by and the indigenous peoples. We would be spectators. We would be just helping them, providing our academic expertise, but it would be indigenous driven, and that is very much part of our agenda. So I'm very pleased to report. So this shows some of the slides from Bruce's Technologies. Aquaculture, cultivating Arctic char, where the flesh goes back to the indigenous diet. Okay? The red Erlenmeyers show the waste and from those fish and algae being used to produce xanthans, which are a commercial product. The water from the fish tanks is used to irrigate and fertilize the crops. So it is indeed a circular economy, and this is a brilliant project. So we built on Bruce's expertise. And we said, all right, let's do this for the climate action call for the New Frontiers Research Fund International. And we brought in Derek Johnson from the Faculty of Arts, who is working on the small fish economy in vulnerable populations. David Levin from engineering, led the agriculture piece and the aquaculture piece with indigenous populations. But that wasn't enough. We had to add to that the social justice and human rights aspects. Right? And so in order to do that, we brought in our new star, Nathan Jereshko, from the Faculty of Law. And then we fleshed it out with different types of expertise, all spanning all disciplines from engineering, health, humanities. And that's what I came here to do. So this has been a thrill, but that wasn't all. Right? It was an international call. And so this is where the dealing comes in, where you have to have some soft skills, and we have to understand cultures. And so we submitted this application with 10 countries, 3 from the global south, spanning 4 continents. But it gets better. We have the developed world providing funding for the developing world. So Germany is sponsoring West Africa, Norway is sponsoring Central Africa, South Africa is taking care of its own, Australia is funding its own, but also the Pacific Islands, Vanuatu. The US and UK are sponsoring efforts in India, but are also helping with the human rights and social justice aspects across the network. So this, to me, is interdisciplinary collaboration, real interdisciplinarity, not having a token, one of those and one of those. So the total ask here is 6.2 million. We'll see. But even if it's not successful, we have achieved what we set out to do, bring different disciplines together and work with international partners. The next one is the New Frontiers of Research Fund transformation. These are large projects. We have never been successful as a university because the proposals were not interdisciplinary, right? These are each worth 24 million over 6 years. Last Tuesday, we submitted 4 NOIs, and I thank my grants facilitators here. We worked around the clock, but just brilliant combinations of different types of faculty, using our social justice humanities theme in pretty much all of them. So let me tell you a little bit about these. One is fronted by Dr. Dingra, Faculty of Health Sciences, from physiology. And this is the use of stem cell therapies to treat rare diseases. Another, also from the Faculty of Health Sciences, by Dr. Kaiser, prenatal interventions to prevent lung abnormalities. The next 2 I want to really highlight. Let me talk about the project led by Fei Yu Wang. We've had a tremendous time with this, dealing with the Manitoba government, the Nunavut government, and the federal government. And this is a serious initiative, and it's something that drew me to the University of Manitoba. And that is to open up new routes through the Hudson Bay conduit, the Northern Arctic, the two branches of the Northwest Passage, to access the rest of the world. Right? Central America, South America, North America, Europe, Asia. You're going to see a very new pattern. The shipping routes will be much faster than going through the Panama Canal, for example. We have very astutely avoided the Northeast Passage that belongs to Russia because of the geopolitical activity. Right? But the mapping by our expert scientists at CIOS, who are really international experts in sea ice formation, degradation, recession, show that if we don't do anything about climate change, that we will have about 300 days a year of no ice in the Hudson Bay. And so that's a serious prediction, but it means that we'd better get ready. So how do we develop that area? We don't want to do it again with the indigenous peoples. And so here, we have been working with the Dene Nation, the Cree Nation, and Churchill in Manitoba, but all the small communities in Nunavut, right? Ranking Inlet, Chesterfield Inlet, Aviak, and so on, 8 communities, bringing them together so where this project will be driven by Inuit and First Nations. Okay. They want to own their destiny, and that's what we're doing. Right? We will just empower and help. But they own the waterways, they own the resources, they own the land. And so they now want to develop this. This really goes back in Canadian history, right? And we're trying to bring back the Hudson Bay Regional Roundtable, and we're aiming for a meeting in December. Okay? But this, I think, is going to be history changing and history making as we go forward. And the University of Manitoba is the lead. So, very ambitious project, phase up for it, but we had to bring together a cast of characters that would lift the expertise of CIOS up. And where we had social justice built in, effects on the biosphere built in, right? Working with Memorial University on shipping so that we minimize harm to sea life, but the ships also resist harm from remaining residual ice. So, tremendous project. Okay? The other one that I find very exciting is led by Samar Safi Harb. And here we went off the wall. This is the origins of the universe and the origins of life. Why not, right? That deserves 24 million, come on. So this is a beautiful project where we bring together physicists and philosophers. Why not, right? So this is go big or go home time, and we've submitted that NOI, bringing together a very elaborate cast, right, of thinkers. Right? So we're asking questions like, what does it mean to be self? What is self? How did you decide you were self? What is identity? Is it defined by interactions with others? Does that correlate with interacting systems in development in your own physiological systems? The gut-brain axis, for example. Right? When did you come into being? Why is carbon the chosen life form? Are there other life forms that are not carbon-based? And so Samar is working on the genesis of the heavy elements. On the physics side, we've engaged a team of statisticians. Right? There's an indigenous component here as well. So this is what University of Manitoba should be doing. Okay? So I'm very jazzed to be here. And I'm thrilled to see the response of faculty coming together to make this happen. We're not doing anything. It's all of you. Right? So kudos. Pat yourself on the back. So this is what I showed you when I first came here a year ago. We're going to superimpose on this healthy fundamental landscape these spires of interdisciplinarity. And that's actually what we've done. Okay? This comes about from Two-Eyed Seeing, first proposed by Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall. Right? So this is multi-eyed seeing, but it derives from what Albert has put forward on multi-eyed, on two-eyed seeing. Here, you bring in an indigenous perspective, a Western perspective, you synthesize those into one holistic view, and you use those to move forward in a productive fashion. In talking to Albert, he said that's not what he meant. Right? What he really meant was, it's at that frustrated interface where one is forced to face certain heavy issues. It's at that frustrated interface that innovation occurs. And so what we're after is innovation coming about by the confluence of all these disciplines. Let me say a few words about our ecosystem, research, development, and delivery, right? And so I don't see any issues with working at the fundamental level or the applied level, because I see a bidirectional flow from all these sectors. One feeds the other feeds the one. Okay? And that's in fact the way things happen. Sometimes it's beautiful fundamental discovery that drives development and delivery for societal impact. Sometimes it's a global event, such as climate change, or a market force, social media, that then causes researchers to ask some very, very deep questions. Right? So one has to admit that this is dynamic. There's a bidirectional flow. You can enter this ecosystem at any point, and it really doesn't matter what brand of researcher you are. Let me talk about Idea Start. This is the brainchild of Michael Benarash. And it's in the entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship space. Okay? And this is an entry to entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. Idea Start will be located in this building to recruit students and faculty and point them in the right direction, perhaps to the Stu Clark Center for courses in entrepreneurship. Some will be more mature, and we can figure out how to add value, right, to make them commercially viable. Some will be ready to go with spin-off companies, but we will be the clearinghouse, we'll shunt them, and this is going to be the portal to knowledge mobilization and translation, and hopefully commercialization. Hans-Joachim Wieden leads this initiative, okay? And we have recruited Moses Levy as our director. Moses, Mo, do you want to stand up? Please. Yeah. This was a coup. For those of you who don't know more, he set up Manitoba's first incubator. He set up the Stu Clark Center for Entrepreneurship, and he was on the board of the Asper Foundation, and he has just retired from that board. So we're very fortunate to have Mo with us. Increasing our diversity, we've recruited Rajiv Koyal from India as the manager of Idea Start. And Rajiv worked for NASCOM in India, where, in addition to his own 3 startup companies, he helped launch 400 startup companies over 2 years, right? In the area of physical, virtual entrepreneurship, but also tech women entrepreneurship. So the future is great, right? And keep your ears open and your eyes peeled, because we'll soon have an opening of Idea Start. So ideas start here. That's what we want for the University of Manitoba. In terms of economic impact, just in case you're feeling bashful, the University of Manitoba contributed $3 billion in research economic impact in 22-23. Okay? The impact of our canola research is formidable. And in the past 10 years, the yearly impact in revenue has been $30 billion, $12 billion in wages, and 207,000 jobs. That's real impact. Okay? Moving on to international. I told you that we've got a lot of work to do with increasing our international footprint. That's exactly what we've done. Let me just talk about some of the major initiatives. Maternal child health, that's been a strong force at the University of Manitoba, led by Jamie Blanchard and his team, Marissa Becker as one of the leading stars in that program, working in India at scale, unbelievable scale in Uttar Pradesh, initially funded by the Gates Foundation, but now funded by the state government. You cannot believe this scale. 240 million people in Uttar Pradesh, 70% rural, 6 million births a year. This is serious business. And the University of Manitoba team has set up community centers in the different villages. It's engaging with the different clinics, training doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, community health workers. Okay? Unbelievable scale, right? So just to give you an idea, frontline workers, 180,000 armed with mobile phones feeding into the data center and permitting tracking of supply chain issues, doctor shortages, and so on at particular clinics. So this, I think, is the biggest impact, global health at scale. Right? We have Megan Azad, also working in Pakistan and Burkina Faso on the breast milk project, where she's looking at what it takes to have beneficial effects, right, in different subpopulations. We will be expanding both those programs in South Asia and also in Africa. So all good news. We have been firmly ensconced in the HIV/AIDS area in Kenya, and here Keith Folk leads that project at the moment. Emerging infectious diseases, Jason Kinderchuk leads that in Africa, notably in the Congo. So we have a strong presence here in the area of virology. In Greenland and Denmark, Dort Dahl Jensen leads a team of 14 countries. Right? And it's just unbelievable scale again, studying the block of ice in Greenland, which is 2.72 kilometers, and it's moving. Okay? Studying how fast it's moving and drilling down to bedrock, 2.72 kilometers below, to figure out what's happening at the bedrock level, because that will be the future. 160,000 years ago, Greenland did not have any ice. Okay? So I think this is cutting-edge research. Sustainable agriculture, aquaculture I've already talked about. Agriculture alternative energies, working with our collaborators in Singapore and Morocco. And very recently, collaborations with the Czech Republic in the area of water research, and Iceland has come in with the other Nordic countries on our Arctic accessibility project. So I want to show you some pictures. It's terrible lighting, but this is at scale. The top panels show one of the clinics that I visited, and the women were very, very grateful, and so they allowed us to take pictures. This is the birthing ward just after giving birth, the preemie ward. But this particular clinic had 800 births a month, 300 of them by cesarean, because the women are malnourished or suffer from iron deficiencies. So the treatments are very innovative, nothing fancy, but 5 surgeons working shift work in this particular clinic. So very impressive, but more impressive than that, the 2 panels on either end are the community centers that have been set up by Jamie's team, where women bring their kids in to be immunized, but they also learn about nutrition, contraception, family planning, and they learn to read. So this is a lot more than maternal child health care. This is about empowerment of women, and the impact is tremendous. The bottom panels show Dort and me at in the middle of Greenland, showing the entrance to the ice pit. Underneath are all the labs. Under the ice are all these labs. Just unbelievable scale again. This is big science. Right? It's damn cold, but it's big science. So you see Bettina, I don't have, the pointer doesn't work on the screen, but you see Bettina holding this block of ice. That block of ice is 120,000 years old. Right? The panel on the end, you see a lab in orange light. That's to preserve the chemiluminescence, because that's what they use to date these cores as they come out of the ground. Dorothy is shown in her in the lab in the dome structure. It's pretty rustic. So this is the living room, her sleeping quarters, and her lab. Right? And you see the final panel on the right, the celebration as they hit bedrock. But there was a big surprise, because before they hit bedrock, they found that this whole block of ice was skating along quicksand, a layer of mud. And so the thought was, initially, that the bedrock would slow this block of ice down because of friction. Not so. This is really moving. It's moving at 58 meters per year. So serious movement, right? All this ice is going to wind up in the ocean. You might appreciate that this is not sea ice, right? And this is going to change the salinity of the oceans. It's going to change the Gulf Stream, weather patterns, right? In the UK and Europe are predicted to be like southern Ontario. So major effects in addition to sea level rise. So that's why we're doing all this. The panel in the dead center with the sci-fi buildings, that's Singapore, the new city built around the old city. And you see those towers with corridors going between, the walkways, that's the social housing building. This is serious, right? They're so advanced in terms of infrastructure. And the panel on the left there is the signing of the MOU with one of the universities in Morocco. So Dorothy returned safely, and so we celebrated once again. And I celebrate everything, whether it, that's one of my, it's a strong part of my MO. So Dort and JP, her husband, were there, and you'll recognize Hans Joachim, and my head of department, Uta, I report to her as a chemist, and the lovely Linda as well. I have to say a little bit about faculty awards. This is part of the agenda. We have to celebrate. So we put people forward for awards, and we celebrate when they receive the awards. Laurie Kishenbaum is in the audience. He received the Order of Manitoba. Right? We had 2 Orders of Canada, several for the Royal Society of Canada, and so on. And so we had the most influential Filipina woman of the world very recently. Right? So we're doing well. We should be celebrating. Digvir Jayas continues to kick goals here, 2 awards, right? And on Saturday night, he received yet another award, the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Indian community. Right? So I think we have a lot to celebrate, right? And we should do so. Let me end by giving you just a glimpse of the strategic research plan. First of all, let me say that I've been thrilled with the response of faculty, students, and staff who came out to these engagement sessions to make this happen. The process we started in January. We convened a committee of 18 faculty with diverse disciplinary strengths. And from February to July, we worked, the committee members planned and facilitated 5 hybrid iterative engagement sessions with faculty, staff, and students. From July to October, those were very robust, I should say, strong attendance and strong opinions, right? I was vetoed several times. I like that, right? Because people want something else for the University of Manitoba, and you've got to listen. So the plan is very much University of Manitoba, Indigenous tones running throughout, and you will see it soon. From July to October, we optimized. Several committee members provided suggestions, and the writing, much of the writing was done by Karen Schwartz and me and Anamika. The plan was approved by SCUR on October 16th, and it's now on its way to Senate, and after that, we will release it to the community. So thank you very much. The response has been so overwhelming that I'm very optimistic that we will do something special as a university. The committee members are shown here because just to embarrass them, but also to thank them, right? Fantastic representation and fantastic job. So well done. The theme that came through was embodying change through research. Okay? Change within the university, because we want to change the way we approach things, but change outside. What difference are we making in society? Right? So societal impact came through loud and clear. So change through research is our tagline. That didn't come from a faculty or student member, that came from a staff member. Okay? Our vision, the research vision, is to have research grounded in relationships, and that was key for the University of Manitoba, that relationships count, relationships matter, and once again, committed to change within the university and in society. Our mission was to transform research culture, to advance understanding, and to create societal impact. So once again, this dual role, fundamentals, but also application for societal impact, providing solutions for society. Our research values, 7, to coincide with 7 laws in Indigenous culture, but also to embrace the Iroquois philosophy that whatever we did today, whatever we do today, right, we have to think about the impact of those actions 7 generations from now into the future. And so I thought it was very clever that the committee came up with these 7 values. Let me go through them. Responsiveness. We have to respond to issues, to situations, both locally, nationally, and internationally. We have to have a responsibility. We have to take responsibility. As academics, we're in a position to do that. Relationality was important, to realize that we're not all alone, that we're part of Turtle Island, as Anamika started off saying, and that we have to respect the forests, the mountains, right, the oceans, and the land. Right? We're one with all of the entire ecosystem. Relevance. We have to be relevant in what we do. Right? Reciprocity. Admit that there's a give and take, and we should learn. We should give and take freely, and we should learn from our diverse populations. We would do that with respect, right? And respecting other people's opinions, and all that will drive to reconciliation, which is what we're really all about. So you will see this come through in the strategic research plan, and it's very much a University of Manitoba plan, and I'm really thrilled to be part of this. So let me go through some of the aspects. Origins. This came through loud and clear. Origins matter. The pursuit of fundamental knowledge as the cornerstone of research at the University of Manitoba. But admitting that there are fundamental threads which yield this rich tapestry, but we could use that as a foundation to build these inter and multidisciplinary themes, as I started off saying, and deriving strength through that diversity to develop a pluralistic view of the world and to minimize singularity of thought. If you just look at geopolitical events around the world, you know that we're in deep trouble. And we're going to have to approach things very differently from a pluralistic view. Inclusion, then, is the goal. Our research themes, then, very quickly, are shown here. Origins, social justice and human rights, research by, for, and with Indigenous peoples, water and food security, health and well-being, climate action, sustainability, and Central and Arctic accessibility. These are just guidelines, right? We will have fluidity even between these themes. So climate action and health, for example, right? So we're meant to have the full spectrum of activities and fluidity moving between those themes. Student education, extremely important. Today's students are the next generation of decision makers. They are the lifeblood of a university. And our goal is to educate ethically literate global citizens, inspiring critical, creative, and adaptive thought. Pardon me. The research teaching nexus will provide students at all levels research experience as integral to their learning, so that no matter where they go in life, they can apply those principles. Some of them will be research leaders, but they will learn the art of critical thought, problem solving, adaptive thought. We're going to need that. We will support research with the 4 Ps: attracting and retaining talented people, enhancing our infrastructure, the platforms, providing efficient processes, more efficient processes, and fostering these partnerships. And concluding thoughts then. The very fabric of research at UM is about discovery and advancing knowledges. Some of these threads weave meaningful impact into that fabric. And so we shouldn't shy away from impact, because the research we do does matter. Okay? There are other threads that intertwine to embrace community-based research, working for and with communities. And ultimately, we're here to provide solutions for society. And that's really what UM research is all about. That's what we heard from all of you. And we've tried to incorporate that into this strategic research plan. So the future is bright, the future is you, and the future is ours. So let's go. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. People will run around with mics, and Davide will read the questions coming virtually, and I'm going to ask Anamika and Hans-Joachim to join me so that they can field the tough questions. I'll take the easy lobs, okay? But thank you all for listening. And if you're a virtual attendee, you can just sign on to this email and send us your questions. Feels like there should be a bar with drinks in it, right? Okay, who wants to go first?
Nothing online.
Nothing online. They've all fallen asleep, Davide. Yes, we have a question over here.
Oh, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you have brought many important issues regarding the promotion of research in University of Manitoba community. This is Saidur. I am a PhD student of social work program. My concern as an international student, particularly to address the UM exchange knowledge. For my case, last summer I attended in the international conference held in USA and presented my research paper there. And I applied for the funding to the FGS, and I received a very minimum funding for this purpose, which is like $750, which is, to me, is very inadequate. So if we want to expedite the exposure, international research exposure, community exchange our knowledge. So this kind of issue, I think you should rethink, like for contextualizing the present situations. Another issue.
Could I address that one first?
Yeah.
My brain is limited capacity. Yeah, it's a very important point you bring up. And from my point of view, what I encourage faculty to do is to get out there and hustle and bring in more grant monies so they can fund their students to go to conferences. I had a very large group when I was an active researcher, and I funded every one of my students to go to conferences. They didn't take a cent from the house. So from my point of view, I'm trying to encourage faculty to tap into a lot of other funding opportunities so they can do exactly what you're suggesting. The Faculty of Graduate Studies, of course, the second point, is also trying to make an impact here. Budgetary restrictions, of course, are a serious issue we're dealing with, so you have to put up with that. But the intent is there to try to sponsor more activity in graduate students and postdoctoral fellows, right? But at the fundamental level, from my point of view, the faculty have to step up. Okay? So, yeah, next question.
Yeah, another concern is like related to, you have mentioned in your speech, our mission is to transform our research culture. So what are the potential indicators to think about how to transfer our research culture? Can you clarify about this issue? Thank you so much.
That's a great question. Well, the first thing, obvious gauge, is to look at, have we made a difference in diversity, right? Do we really have a diverse research ecosystem? The players, how many indigenous researchers do we have? At the moment, since you're a graduate student, we have 250 indigenous graduate students. That's 6.5% of the total population. Population parity is a long way off, because in Manitoba, it's 18%. We're doing better at the undergraduate level. We have 11%. So we have to increase diversity, number one, but not just with the student population, with the staff population, both academic and non-academic. It is not a coincidence that even in the last year, I have increased dramatically the diversity of staff in my portfolio. That was a conscious decision. So that's one. The other part of the culture, that change that we're advocating, is people coming together. And that's already taking place, right? With the colloquia, people are coming and sharing their ideas. They're teaming up to put forward competitive grant applications for external opportunities. To come back to your first question, that will provide the funding piece for graduate students, right? Not just travel, but salary components. So we can do this much better, right? But it requires competing for external funding. Culture change takes a long time, right? There's an old expression, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's very true, right? So changing culture is very slow, but it's happening very quickly here. I'm really very impressed because people are just jumping on. It will take some time to be more competitive in granting programs, but it's going well. Our ORS staff have been working with individuals at the fundamental level to generate more competitive applications. On November 1st, we will submit 114 discovery applications to NSERC. That's a new record, right? Tracy, how many did we have last year? So 2 years ago, it was about 60, if I recall, when I looked at the stats. So we're doing well, right? So that's a culture change. People are now applying where they didn't apply before. So work in progress, but I think we'll get there. Let me ask for opinions here. HJ or Anamika?
If it's on, yeah. Just want to also add about the travel funding. I agree with Mario. I have my own graduate students and do sponsor them to go to conferences. FGS is also not the only opportunity. Sometimes departments have conference awards for students that you can apply for. And then there is also the student union who provides awards for scholarships. So I encourage you to reach out to further opportunities, and it's very important to attend conferences and present your work and listen to others.
Okay, just a quick note on the other benefits of having awards given is like, I mean, we're not saying that there shouldn't be any support through central funds, but they contribute to your CV by having an award given in your CV. So that's a CV building effect that makes you more competitive to actually get more awards. So I think the monetary value to that is not critical, 100% critical. So it's actually, there's additional benefit to that.
Very good points.
Is this on? Oh, okay. Graceful. Hi, Mario.
Hi there.
So one of the biggest changes that we've experienced, I guess, since you've been here is creating Idea Start that was initiated by Dr. Darren Fast. So HJ and Mo, welcome. I guess one of my main questions is because I work with entrepreneurs and startups all the time is that it takes money to make money. So we're looking at stats of like previous experiences of, you know, other successes, for example, in India of launching just say 400 startups. Well, those 400 startups are gonna have to incorporate. And then the second part of that as well is that we're really experiencing a lack of facilities at the U of M to culture those ideas and to move those ideas forth through proof of concept. Like a lot of these scientists are going to need access to lab space and wet lab space. And then further to that too is that, you know, some of their researchers may have access to the funding, but they're not going to have access to those funds. So I think it's a great idea to continue to support entrepreneurship and knowledge mobilization, and I know that's a big goal of yours, but how are we really going to support funds for when these young students or bright minds come to you and say, I really have a great idea, but you know, I don't have $2,500 right now to incorporate my business and get a shareholders agreement, and I also need $10,000 worth of wet lab space. You got that for me?
Great questions, great questions. So I'll take the physical infrastructure question, and then I'll hand over to Hans-Joachim. I'm currently working on a proposal to develop wet lab space in Smart Park. I've done this before. If you go to Vancouver, you'll see the wet lab space I set up there. It works, it does work. You have several startup companies on a rotating basis who go through there very successfully. Some don't make it, but some do, right? So I agree with you, that's absolutely critical. On the scrutiny, I'll talk about scrutiny of the technology first. We have to be very selective, right? I've been down this road for 25 years in the innovation business. You cannot afford to support everything. You have to do due diligence. So the gate has to be at the front and not down the road. My motto was kill it quickly. And so you do rigorous due diligence based on industrial standards, right? But once you select those, you're absolutely right. You have to give them every possible chance of making it. So yes, funds are important, and we will work towards that. And I'm going to turn to Hans-Joachim to talk about the funding.
Yeah, excellent question. So we had this conversation before for the necessity to actually be able to put these or lower the barriers for the innovators to get into the marketplace. And depends on which space you are in, the costs are different. And you just described the standard cost of setting it off. But you know, medtech is different than software and so on and so on. I guess what we're trying to do, I think the answer to this falls into two phases. So, I mean, we cannot just pop the fingers and have the money right here to enable those people. But we can, and that's the role that Idea Start can have, is to facilitate and identify pockets of monies that can be accessed to people, because I mean there are different programs within the government, within the university that by streamlining access to them might help for the first phase. But ultimately, and Mo can speak to this later as well, is our intent of integrating and raising funds for companies that go through this, because I mean that's something we can centrally try to do. And I mean an important piece in that is also engaging the government into supporting Manitoba grown solutions to this. So an integration between university and the University of Manitoba and the province of Manitoba to support or create a support fund might be a good way of addressing this issue. The space, Mario answered on, and we had a lot of conversation about this, and I've done a similar thing that Mario has done by creating rentable lab space to lower that access barrier, which is which associated to the cost to the technology, is a powerful tool to do, but it's not going to be done as brick and mortar. It's not going to be done in one thing. So again, there's a second phase. We might have to find solutions within the existing infrastructure that we have, so agreements and lease agreements that actually accommodate that. But there's only so much we can do, and that's where the hard cutoff comes in, I guess. That answers your question.
Hope that answers some of your questions, but top of mind, they really are top of mind. Other questions or comments? Any
Yes, we have a
suggestions
question from online. This comes from Dr. Versha Banaraj. Thank you for acknowledging the research barriers for trials and shared health, but there are other barriers around data and AI and technology in health, including e-health. Data is present, but not easily accessed, and workarounds are being created to access these. Are there discussions around the amazing commodity of data that Manitoba can pride itself on? How do we mobilize this asset?
It's a great question, Versha. As you know, University of Manitoba has a tremendous reputation for their health data management system, right? And certainly, we can develop better algorithms for deep data mining, but the basis is already there. So I think with the Faculty of Health Sciences, we will be working to ask the critical questions: what's necessary to go to the next level and provide greater access? But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that Manitoba has the best reputation of any province for health data management. So we have a very strong foundation to build on. It may seem that there are barriers, but trust me, coming from other provinces, there are even greater barriers. That's not to say that we shouldn't optimize further here, but we will optimize further here. And those discussions are underway. You probably, Versha, referring also to the fact that we have different affiliate agencies, right? Cancer Care Manitoba, the Institute CRIM, Seven Oaks Hospital, St. B, St. Boniface. And so coordination between all those entities adds another layer of complexity. So we have to address that as well. And we are in discussions to do exactly that, to try and generate common research affiliate agreements that each organization will sign on to the same research affiliate agreement. We will talk about, in that agreement, a data sharing piece and a data accessibility piece. So those discussions are underway, and we hope that with shared health, we can make a serious dent in this. But thank you for that. That's a very important point.
We have another question online from Jude Uzona. Jude says, thanks, Mario, for a wonderful and brilliant presentation. Also, congratulations on these achievements. One of the greatest challenges to our health researchers is aging infrastructure as it relates to old animal care holding facilities. This sometimes precludes bringing new animal models that definitely will enhance innovation and competitiveness in grant applications. I recall bringing this up and asking you this question during your interview for the position. Is there any plan for modernizing the animal care facility at the University of Manitoba?
Great question, Jude, and we have been very busy in the past year, although I didn't highlight it, on doing exactly that. So the two aquaculture facilities, right, one at Fort Grady and one at the Bannatyne campus, have been upgraded. Many of those funds came from the VPRI, right? So we're okay for the aquaculture facilities now. The swine rearing has been moved off-site. The egg farmers are all set. So we're chipping away at this. We have applied with the BRIF competition for a new level 3 facility to be housed at Bannatyne to deal with animals, right? And to look at viral infections in animal models. So work in progress, you have to chip away at it because there's no one source that can provide it all. And physically, a lot of these are separated. A lot of these facilities are separated. So building a completely new building will take some doing. Recall that our CFI cap for the university is only 25.7 million. So it's not that large a sum if you're looking at construction of new buildings. Well, it's not a large sum at all, right? And that's all we would be able to do. So I think we're doing our best. The level 3 facilities were a problem. We've remedied that with 2 separate applications. Hopefully we'll be successful in the larger one. But work in progress, right? There are no monies at the center at the moment, given the present budgetary situation, to just provide a magic building. But centralization of the facilities, especially at Bannatyne, would take a lot. It's scattered at the moment, and I've visited all those facilities, so I know exactly what Jude is talking about. So patience, I guess.
One more comment from online. This comes from Genevieve, a professor at the College of Nursing. Genevieve says, "Thank you, Dr. Pinto, for showcasing a vision that I feel we all can see ourselves in. I want to echo your statements that we need to stop downplaying that we are only from the U of Manitoba. Let's be loud and proud of where we are from and what we are doing. We are making a global impact."
Great comment, and I'm with you all the way. You know, I can tell you that we are now registering in Ottawa. I get calls from some of the leaders saying, "What's going on out there?" Right? You're suddenly in the news. What's in the water? But so it's just a matter of taking pride in what we do and having that confidence. So we've got a lot to be proud of, you know. One thing that came through loud and clear in the engagement sessions for the strategic research plan was the talent base that we have. It's just tremendous, right? So we just have to harness that more effectively, raise our level of confidence. We don't have to be too brash about it, right? Could still have that Manitoba modesty, but we have to be a little bit more forthright, on the front foot, I would say. Right? But thanks for the comment. I need more of you.
Can you tell me what steps are being taken to revise the UM's research policies in terms of data and financial requirements, and how that's going to incorporate the OCAP principles, allow us to work more collaboratively with the Indigenous populations? And then there's a second part to that as well.
Okay, let me answer the first part. On the financial matters, the VP administration is dealing with those. On our end, we're dealing with, obviously, the research ethics policy, the research security policy will be the next one, and so on. So we will deal with those that fall squarely within our portfolio, but my colleagues, VP administration, will deal with issues, finance and so on. But, you know, I think where you're going with this is that we need more integration of the different policies and the different procedures, right? Accessing some of these modalities, there are redundancies, let me just put it that way. So we can do a better job at integrating some of these packages. Okay. And your second question?
It's just that we find our hands tied by our policies, and then you're bringing in, lots of collaborations, but then we're a little bit bottlenecked at our end because we have to follow the UN policy. So, so I wanted to know what are the changes expected and when can we expect the changes to happen?
I think the answer to that is it's going to depend on what the issues are, right? As we deal with different agencies, different international agencies, we are faced with increased need for compliance, okay? I'll give you an example. Most recently, the NIH informed us just weeks ago that there would be a higher level of scrutiny to be compliant. And this is going to shock some of you, but that involves going down to the level of lab books. That got a reaction. So it's going to take a lot to be compliant. Now, you can approach this one of two ways. You can say, well, I don't like the NIH policy. Well, you're free to say that, but don't accept the funds. Or accept the funds, and you allow us to make that job easier for you. But we will have to do it, trust me. So with all of these policies, I think you're going to see more and more conditions put upon us, ranging from security to accepting funds from foreign institutions, right? And reporting requirements. So it's going to be part of life. But we'll try and make it as easy as possible for all of you by streamlining processes and policies. And that's really why we're bringing in these directors, to give those efforts a professional face, right? But it's slow, I agree with you. It can be very frustrating if you're trying to do, if you're involved in a particular transaction with a partner and you find that there's a loophole because of a policy that requires change. So I think the best we can do is, depending on the required change, we discuss it and figure out if you can do a quick fix. In the software business, this is a patch, or if we have to do something more rudimentary. Okay? I hope I've answered your question. There's a post between me and you, and I don't like it, but... Is that okay? Yeah. Well, we'll do our best. Other questions?
One more question online. This comes from Dr. Christine Mayer. Thank you for all the work of you and your team. Can you please speak to any new plans to help scaffold and mentor the research, infrastructure, and granting opportunities specific to junior faculty members? Thank you.
Fantastic question, and close to my heart. We will begin this fall the sessions with early career researchers and mid-career researchers, right? Not just the colloquia, but more help from our staff in ORS working directly with ECRs and MCRs to give them some pointers and to bring in more senior mentors who can also provide some pointers. So I think it's absolutely critical. Recruiting faculty is one thing, but retaining them is even more important. And so we're going to put a lot of energy into this starting this fall, because it's not easy, you know. You're parachuted into a position, you're asked to manage finances, teaching, research, and people. And that's what gets most people, right? That's what poses most of the problem. Managing people. Nobody teaches you how to do this. And so you emulate your best supervisors, you emulate your best teachers when you teach, but juggling it all is serious business. how do you then go about layering on applying for different types of grants? So we're going to try and help you do that. And these ethics officers, EDI officers, and ORS staff will be helping you to do that and to navigate a very complex ecosystem these days, right? And we haven't talked about compliance yet, but we have to take that burden off ECRs, right? It's just too much at the moment, so that you can get on with your scholarship. And that's what you're here for. So let us provide the support as best we can. If there are issues, please bring them to our attention, and we'll do our best to address them. Okay. Other questions? There's food at the back, if you wish. Have we exhausted all our questions? Any tips? Get out of town, stuff like that? No? Any more questions, David? No. Well, if not, let me just thank all of you for attending, for your participation, and I look forward to the coming year. It's going to be great. We've laid the seeds, and now it's time. Now it's time to build towards a crop and then harvest the crop, to use a Manitoba analogy. But I think we're poised, we're poised for great things. So I'm looking forward to the next year. Please join us in refreshments, and you can exchange informally with some of the people I've mentioned who are there. Mo is here, Bruce Hardy's over here, and our grants facilitators are right up front here. So please feel free to bend their ears. Okay? Thank you all, and have a great week.